Thank you for joining us for our monthly webinar series from Local Market Monitor, where we take a closer look at this month's National Economic Outlook, which was written by Local Market Monitor's president, Ingo Windsor. For those of you that don't know Ingo, he has been analyzing real estate markets for over 30 years and is a graduate of MIT and Boston University. He's not your typical economist and has a knack for taking complex data, extracting what is important, and providing unique insights and tangible guidance on real estate markets. So with that, I bring you Ingo and his insights on the economy.
Thanks very much, Carolyn. As you know, every month we look at the latest economic data to see what they can tell us about the current state of real estate markets and where those might be headed. Our underlying premise is that you make better investment decisions when you have a better idea of the economic forces that affect supply and demand. Today, I mainly want to look at what will happen with home prices over the next few years. But in order to do so, we also have to get a better grip on the current strength or weakness of the economy. For the past 6 months, I've been looking at the economy like this. On the left, I've shown the loss of jobs since the beginning of the pandemic, and on the right, the growth of jobs since the beginning of 2022, when quarantines have been lifted, and we could imagine that a lot of normal economic activity had resumed. The problem with looking at the economy like this is that it can overstate the rate of growth we're currently experiencing by masquerading recovery jobs as new jobs. If that's happening, the rate of growth will steadily slow down, and that's exactly what we're seeing in the last few months. This means that the high rate of recent gains, around 3% a year, overstates how strong the economy actually is. We might be better off going back to the original measure of job losses, comparing the recent level of jobs with the level right before the pandemic. That's what this chart shows. We see that it wasn't until June of last year that the economy reached the same level of jobs as before, and that growth since then has been fairly modest. And if we look at the major job sectors in the same way, it's clear that while some areas of the economy have fully recovered, others continue to retard growth. Business services are the 800-pound gorilla of the economy, one of the biggest sectors, and now with 8% more jobs than before the pandemic, and accounting for half of all the recovery jobs. The problem with putting all your eggs in the business services basket is that business services only grow and only can grow if other businesses are growing. A lot of new businesses started up as the pandemic receded, and maybe that's all we're seeing here. The finance sector also has been growing well, but we can see that much of the growth didn't happen until mid-2021, as the boom in home prices surged upwards. Lots of mortgage bankers and real estate agents. The same in construction, a rapid recovery starting mid-2021. Although these are both good indicators of growth, they could quickly reverse when the boom is over, and they're also fairly small contributors to the economy. The manufacturing sector is bigger, although not nearly what it was 30 years ago, and more reassuring. This is real growth at a very respectable 2% a year. And jobs in healthcare have finally regained their pre-pandemic level. Healthcare, along with business services, was powering growth in the economy for a decade and probably will do so again. But now we get to large sectors of the economy that have not regained pre-pandemic levels. Retail is one of them and probably will not be a driver of the economy in the future. Restaurants also don't look like a growth possibility. The rate at which jobs have been regained is getting slower and slower. And in government, we can expect very little growth in the next few years. It's not a bloated bureaucracy that's the problem, it's tight budgets, and those will continue. What does all this have to do with home prices? It's simple. The price boom is over. The question now is how fast and how far prices will fall. If the economy is moderately successful, which I think is most likely, prices in most markets will fall moderately over several years. If a serious recession hits, prices will drop much faster. Now, you may not believe there's any reason for prices to drop at all. In the fourth quarter, as we see in the chart, Prices were 12% higher than the previous year. Yes, we can see the increase is slowing, but won't prices just remain where they are? Do they have to fall? Here's a history of home price increases and decreases since the 1980s, put together by the Federal Housing Finance Agency. It's typically unreadable, but look at the red line, which shows annual changes just like the previous chart. Look at the long buildup of prices until you get to the middle of the chart, then the prolonged fall in prices after the 2008 recession. Compare that with the much sharper jump in prices at the right hand of the chart and the much sharper downside of that surge. I have difficulty believing that red line will just stop at zero and that prices won't fall. Here are the same data for some individual markets. In Raleigh, with a very strong economy, prices in the fourth quarter was still up 15% over last year. In Austin, the picture is much the same, except that fourth quarter prices were up just 8%. And in Boise, the fourth quarter increase was zero. What do you want to bet it won't keep going down? Here's what I see happening in these three markets over the next 3 years. Actual annual home prices are shown in this chart in blue. The forecasts are in orange. And one of the major factors in the forecast is the line of red dots called the income price that grows along with local income. In the 300 local markets I've covered for 30 years, whenever home prices got out of line with local income, they have always come back down to the income price. And that's what I expect to happen this time. In Raleigh, because the economy and population growth are strong, I expect the fall to be moderate. In Austin, let me get my notes. In Austin, I expect a bigger drop. And an even bigger and longer lasting one in Boise. I think we'll see the same pattern around the country, a fairly rapid readjustment of home prices back to what local incomes can support. If the economy were stronger, if population growth were higher, if incomes were rising faster, this might not happen. But aside from inflation, which could artificially boost incomes and the income prices, we're in a situation where the economics and demographics are against us. That's it. In this time of uncertainty, let me plug our Investors Metro analysis, which analyzes home prices and rents, calculates investment risk, and provides strategic investment analysis for each local zip code. Available for 200 markets, it's written for investors, not economists. Thanks very much for following along. This is our National Economic Outlook. I'm Inga Windsor.